Good evening. If you're a returning listener, welcome back. Your commitment to the boring is both noted and deeply respected. If you're new, rest easy. You're in capable, mildly disinterested hands. Before we proceed, I'll gently encourage you to take part in the modern rituals. If you'd be so kind, consider liking the video, perhaps subscribing if you haven't already. And feel free to leave a comment letting us know where you're listening from. Whether you're curled beneath blankets in a quiet apartment, resting in the break room of an overnight shift, or lying somewhere between furniture and floor, we're glad you're here. You've awoken before the sun, not because of alarm bells or any productive impulse, but because the floor you sleep on is cold and someone has just kicked it. There is no snooze button, no warm shower waiting, just the sound of wooden heels on stone, a barked name that might be yours, and the distant clatter of pots being angrily arranged. The air is already thick, not warm, just dense. Somewhere, a fire has been lit, and though the flames are far from your skin, the smoke has found its way into your nose. You cough, no one notices. The kitchen is waking up, and your personal discomfort has no audience. This is your place of work, or perhaps more accurately, your place of endurance. The kitchen itself is not a single room but a small, stone-bound kingdom. A warren of chambers and corridors, each one with its own temperature, purpose, and smell. In one room, dough is being pounded into flat submission. In another, a goose is being plucked while its former neighbors stare glassily from a bloodied bench. You walk past it all, unhurried, because you have learned that rushing invites more attention, and more attention leads to more tasks. The fire has to be maintained. That is rule one. Without fire, nothing happens. No stews, no roasts, no seared bits of anything. Just cold, useless ingredients and a line of shouting superiors. And so, you spend much of your time feeding logs into brick mouths that never quite seem full, eyes stinging, lungs quietly staging their protest. Around you, the others move with a kind of grim choreography. The older ones speak in mutters and side-eyes. The younger ones stare straight ahead, like horses made to pull carts they didn't volunteer for. Everyone has a job. No one is smiling. The spit must be turned. That is rule two. If the meat roasts unevenly, there will be shouting. If it burns, there will be more. Your task may be to turn it, slowly, constantly. One direction, then the other. Your arms ache, but they do not complain. Complaints are luxuries for those who don't depend on thin broth and yesterday's crust for their next meal. In one corner of the room, a boy is peeling root vegetables that look more like rocks than food. His hands are red from the chill. He drops a parsnip. A spoon clatters next to him a moment later, not thrown, just let go with an air of mild punishment. The message is clear: drop nothing, waste nothing, or someone else will have to answer for it. A large pot is boiling, full of something you hope never to identify. It's been boiling for some time now. No one remembers when it started. No one seems especially interested in when it might stop. It just bubbles, occasionally letting off a cloud of steam so thick it wipes the room from view. There is no moment of calm here, no break in which to gather your thoughts. The tasks change, but the pace does not. Even when there is nothing urgent, there is always something that could be done. Wiping, scrubbing, sharpening, fetching, carrying. If your hands are still, someone will find a reason to unstill them. And over it all, the figure of the master cook looms. He does not shout often, but when he does, the walls seem to lean in to listen. His approval is a currency no one can afford to lack. His disappointment is legendary, and often spoken of in hushed tones near the storage cellar, where no one can hear you wish for alternative employment such as shepherding or shipwreck. The floor is never clean. No matter how many rags are dragged across it, it remains forever stained with grease, ash, and the memories of meals long since consumed. It is both stage and battlefield. You walk carefully, not out of grace, but survival. The smells are constant. A strange, ever-changing fog of roasting meat, raw fish, boiling barley, sour milk, damp wool, smoke, and something faintly metallic that no one has the timmy or courage to investigate. You breathe through your mouth, but it doesn't help. Above you, in rooms you will never enter, people are waking slowly, stretching beneath linen sheets, unaware that their breakfast is already being fought into existence below them. They will never see the blood on the apron, or the burn on your hand. They will simply nod at the food, as if it appeared by magic. And then they will ask for more. But for now, your job is simpler. Do not burn the bread, do not drop the plate, do not speak unless spoken to, and when someone tells you to taste the stew, do not flinch. This is the Tudor kitchen. It is many things. Loud, dangerous, absurd, but mostly it is a trap, a place you enter to work and remain because leaving means explaining why. And no one wants to explain anything. Not here, not today, not when there's still another meal to make. And there's always another meal to make. Who awaken not to sunlight, nor to the scent of breakfast, nor to the gentle rustle of linen, or the chirp of birds in a distant hedge. No, you awaken to footsteps, not soft ones. Heavy, deliberate steps across wooden floorboards somewhere just overhead, then a voice. It isn't calling your name, it's just speaking loudly enough to make the walls vibrate. That's the signal. Your day has begun. Your bed is a loose collection of straw and fabric. At some point, it may have been called a pallet. Now it's mostly a suggestion. The floor beneath is colder than it should be, even in summer. You wonder, briefly, if you've ever actually felt warm in the mornings here. Probably not. Your neck is stiff. Your back is worse. The corner of the room where you've been sleeping is too small to sit up properly without bumping your head, so you slide out of it sideways, feet first, like a sack being nudged out of a cupboard. Your clothes, which double as your blanket, are already on you. There is no changing, no choosing, just the same thick woolen tunic and heavy stockings you've been wearing for days. You pat your sides to check your pockets, not out of habit, but because you once lost a spoon and still haven't heard the end of it. There's no basin, no mirror, no tooth powder. You wet your face with a cloth that hasn't been dry in living memory, rub it across your eyes, and that's your grooming done. Your hair is what it is. Likely flat on one side and sticking up on the other, like it's trying to escape you. The air is already heavy. You can feel it pressing against your skin. You haven't even reached the kitchen and already the smoke has crept up the stairs. It smells like damp wood, old onions, and something that once resembled meat. You breathe through your mouth and try not to taste it. You step into the hallway and are nearly knocked over by someone carrying a crate of potatoes. No one says anything. You nod. They nod. Communication here is minimal, unless shouting is involved. You trail behind them down the corridor, ducking low wooden beams and stepping over the cat, who seems to sleep wherever it pleases, and who has never once acknowledged your existence. The kitchen is not quiet. Even at this hour, it pulses with energy. Fires are already being stoked, cauldrons already bubbling. Someone is beating dough with what looks like a table leg. You blink into the dimness, trying to orient yourself. Then you hear your name, or something close to it. It's been shouted from across the room, with the exact tone one might use if they had discovered a leak in the ceiling or a rat in the flour. You turn, slowly, and find the source. The assistant cook, who always appears as though he hasn't slept in months and is made entirely of elbows. He points at a pile of vegetables. You nod. You walk to the pile. You sit, and your hands begin peeling. There is no greeting. No good morning. There are no good mornings. There are mornings, and there are not mornings. That is the extent of recognition. The potatoes are covered in dirt. So are your hands. So is the floor. You peel in silence, the scrape of the knife against skin just loud enough to remind you that you are, in fact, alive. For now. A girl sits down next to you, You don't know her name. You've worked together for weeks, maybe more, and have exchanged fewer words than you have with the cat. She begins peeling without looking at you. This is companionship. It is, in its way, comforting. Eventually, the assistant cook returns. He points to the pile again. He doesn't say anything, but the message is clear. Faster, always faster. The pace in this place is not set by clocks, but by anxiety. Once the vegetables are peeled and dumped into a pot large enough to hide in, you are sent to fetch water. The bucket is wooden, the handle bites into your skin. The pump is outside, in the yard, where the air is somehow colder than it was indoors. You work the lever slowly, steadily. The water is reluctant. It comes in slow spurts. You wait. You watch your breath fog in front of you. You consider briefly what would happen if you just kept walking. But you don't. You return to the kitchen, hauling the bucket like it's filled with rocks. You try not to spill it. You do anyway. No one says anything, but someone behind you sighs, loudly and pointedly. The floor, already slick, becomes just a bit more treacherous. The cook enters not long after. He is wide, ruddy, and wearing an apron that once had a color. He doesn't speak. He surveys the room like a general preparing for battle. He sniffs the air. He frowns. He begins issuing instructions with the kind of abrupt confidence that suggests he does not care whether they are followed, only that they are spoken. You are told to watch the porridge. Watching, in this case, means stirring it with a wooden paddle the size of a shovel. You do so, slowly, carefully. The pot is hot. The steam rises in waves. It smells faintly of oats and deeply of disappointment. Time does not move in this kitchen. It expands. Minutes stretch like dough. Hours blend together, marked only by changes in task, tone, and temperature. There is always something on fire. Sometimes it's on purpose. Eventually, someone hands you a tray. On it are bowls, arranged with the kind of care that suggests they might be judged. You are told to carry it upstairs. Carefully. You walk with all the focus of a tightrope walker on a windy day. You reach the dining hall, where the servants who actually serve the food collect the trays and disappear behind doors you are not permitted to pass through. You walk back downstairs. The stairs are uneven. The air is warmer now, bordering on oppressive. You begin to sweat. The fire needs more fuel. You carry logs. You stack them near the hearth. Your hands are splintered. Your eyes sting. Someone coughs behind you, long and dry. And so the day continues. You peel, you stir, you carry, you spill, you are corrected, you nod, you do it again. The wake-up call never really ends. It simply becomes the day. And the day is long. The fire never starts easily. It never cooperates. It is not your friend, not your servant, and certainly not a willing participant in the miserable enterprise known as breakfast. It must be coaxed, bullied, and bribed into existence, and even then, it only burns when and where it chooses. The wood is damp, because of course it is. It was stacked in the courtyard, under a tarp that was mostly theoretical. The logs smell of mildew and old rot. They're heavy, not because they are large, but because you are tired. Everything is heavier when you haven't properly slept, or eaten, or stretched. You crouch awkwardly by the hearth, arranging the pieces as you were shown kindling first, then the smaller logs, then the larger ones. There is a pattern, a ritual, and if you deviate from it, the cook will notice. He always notices. Your flint is dull. The steel is worse. Sparks sputter out like insults brief, sharp and ineffective. You strike again, and again, and again. Nothing. The others are watching, though they pretend not to. They've all failed to light the fire before. They know the feeling, the creeping heat of humiliation long before any actual warmth is produced. Eventually, after much grumbling and knuckle scraping, the fire catches. A thin blue smoke curls upward. It smells sour and anxious. You blow gently, feeding the flames with your breath, your face now level with the ash. You're rewarded with a sudden whoosh of flame that singes your eyelashes. You blink, you do not react. There's no time for that. With the fire lit, the real work begins. This is not the gentle heat of a modern oven. This is not a knob you twist, a light that glows, a timer that beeps. This is wild heat, uneven, unpredictable, and dangerously personal. The kind of heat that licks at your shins, creeps up your sleeves, and reminds you that you are flammable, that everything here is flammable, including the recipe. You are instructed to tend the flames, which means you must kneel beside them, adjusting logs with an iron poker while the room fills with smoke that the chimney pretends to remove. It does not. The chimney exists mostly as a formality. The smoke prefers to stay close, to linger. It gets in your eyes, in your hair, in your mouth. It clings to your skin like a second, angrier layer of clothing. The pots begin to arrive. Enormous iron cauldrons, blackened from years of use and punishment. They are filled with things you are not supposed to ask about. The cook knows, the assistant pretends to know. You just stir, clockwise, unless told otherwise. Slowly, to avoid splashing. It still splashes. Your hands are marked with old burns, new blisters, and the faint red outline of yesterday's stew. There's something being roasted on the spit. You're not sure what it is. It might be pork. It might be something that was once near a pig. Your job is not to identify it. Your job is to rotate it carefully, consistently over the fire. The spit itself is a long metal rod balanced on brackets. It groans when turned. So do you. You crouch beside it, turning slowly, trying not to lean too far in. The heat is intense, not surface warmth, but deep, bone-softening heat. It gets into your skull, your spine, the hollow of your knees. You try to shift your weight, but the flagstone is unforgiving. You hear someone cough behind you and realize you've slowed. You adjust your pace. Too fast and it cooks unevenly, too slow and it burns. You are, essentially, a human rotisserie. Your reward is the scent of charred meat stuck permanently to your hands. The fire flares again. A log collapses inward. Sparks shoot up like angry insects. You flinch. The hem of your tunic sizzles for a moment, then goes dark. No one saw. Or if they did, they chose not to care. You check your sleeve. A scorch mark. It joins a growing collection. By now the kitchen is loud. Not chaotic exactly, but busy in a way that never lets up. Wooden spoons scrape against copper pans. Knives thud against chopping blocks. Lids clatter. Feet shuffle. Orders are given, and mostly followed. The smoke hasn't cleared. It never does. It simply moves around, choosing new eyes to irritate. There's a moment where the fire grows too large. A pot tips. Something boils over. You reach to move it, too late. The cook slaps your hand away with a cloth and growls something that might be a warning or might be a curse. You nod, instinctively. You were wrong, whatever it was. You usually are. Someone drops a bowl. It shatters. Everyone freezes. The air thickens. The assistant cook marches over, not quickly, but with grim purpose. No one looks directly at the culprit. A quiet exchange takes place. The fragments are gathered. The bowl is forgotten. The tension lingers like smoke. You're told to fetch more firewood. Again, the pile outside has grown smaller and wetter. You carry what you can. Your arms are trembling. Not dramatically, just enough that you hope no one notices. When you return, the cook is shouting. A pan has gone missing. A recipe has been misremembered. The bread is too flat. The soup is too thick, or too thin, or both. Everyone is wrong. Everything is behind schedule. You keep your head down, Add more wood to the fire and try not to become part of the shouting. The hearth is glowing now, a deep, hungry orange. It crackles as fat drips from the spit, flaring with each drop like it resents being interrupted. The floor beneath it is darkened, pitted, slick. You step carefully, your boots slip anyway. You catch yourself. No one notices, or they pretend not to. Either way, you keep going. Time passes in strange shapes beside the fire. You lose track of how long you've been turning, stoking, stirring. You no longer register the heat as a sensation. It is simply part of you now. A second skin, a companion. By the time the fire has settled into a steady rhythm, so have you. Your sleeves are stained. Your voice, if you had reason to use it, is hoarse. Your fingers are stiff. The kitchen continues around you, endless and unforgiving. And somewhere above you, beyond the smoke and stone, people are sitting at tables, unaware that their morning meal began in a room where fire and fury rule the day. There is a moment, brief but familiar, when you are allowed to leave the kitchen. Not for rest, not for air, not for the luxury of quiet, but because something needs to be carved, gutted, or decapitated. And that means a trip to the butchering area and annex off the kitchen, where meat begins its journey from breathing creature to nobleman's supper. It is colder there, which sounds like a blessing until you remember why. The door creaks open, and the smell greets you first. Thick, iron-laced, unrepentant. It is not unpleasant if you are used to it. You are not. It smells like effort and failure, and something that used to be alive but no longer wishes to be discussed. On the table lies something vaguely recognizable, hooved, large, motionless. You avoid looking at the face. They say not to name the animals. You didn't. But it looks like someone else did. You can still make out where the fur has been hastily shaved, where the blade met resistance, where someone got tired halfway through. You are not in charge here. The butcher is. A man who never blinks and always smells faintly of brine. He hands you a cleaver and gestures toward the carcass with all the ceremony of a tavern keeper pointing to an empty cup. You nod. You grip the handle. You raise your arm. You hesitate. The cleaver is heavy, heavier than it looks, heavier than you expected. You bring it down not with force but with uncertainty. It thuds against sinew and bone. It does not slice. It does not cleave. It merely offends. The butcher sighs, loudly. He takes the cleaver, demonstrates. One motion, clean, final, efficient. He hands it back. You try again. It is not better, but it is done. Your job now is to portion, to cut cleanly, evenly, without waste. Each section must be suitable for a different dish. Some will be roasted, others boiled. A few will vanish into pies, where no one will question the origin. The scraps fat, bone, ligamentar scraped into a pail. That pail will become something. Everything becomes something. There is no refrigeration. The meat must be used soon, or salted until unrecognizable. You assist in salting. It stings your hands. You don't ask why. You already know. Everything here stings. The butcher does not speak unless necessary. When he does, it is to correct. When he corrects, it is not gentle. The last apprentice lasted 3 weeks. You are on your 3rd day, or 4th. Time here bends. Your goal is to remain unnoticed. Silent competence is safer than visible enthusiasm. You drag a bucket to the drain in the floor. Blood, bits, things with names no one says aloud. You pour, you rinse, you scrub. The stone is stained. It always will be. Later, a delivery arrives. Wrapped in cloth, tied in string. Something from the nearby estate. A gift, perhaps. A request. Inside, a bird. Several birds. Feathers still on. Eyes still open. The butcher tosses one to you. Pluck it. Gut it. Don't make a mess. You nod. You begin. Feathers cling to everything. Your sleeves, your skin, the corners of your mouth. You do not sneeze. Sneezing implies weakness. You make a small incision beneath the breastbone. You do not look away. The organs are warm, slick, almost apologetic. You remove them. You place them in a bowl, unsure if they are to be kept or discarded, likely both. In this place, even waste is used. The smell is different from the larger cuts, sharper, more intimate. You try not to imagine the bird walking, breathing. It is too late for that kind of mercy. It was always too late. You are told to carry the meat to the larder. It is dim, cold, lined with hooks. Most are occupied, some with poultry, others with slabs of something harder to name. You find an empty hook. You reach up. The carcass swings slightly, unbalancing you. You steady it. You turn to leave. The meat follows with its eyes. Or perhaps that's just the shadow playing tricks. Back in the butchering room, another carcass waits. This one larger, horned, still warm. The butcher raises an eyebrow. You realize your day is not yet done. You grip the cleaver again. Your hands are slick. You do not wipe them. You begin. Chopping becomes a rhythm, not graceful, not skilled, but repetitive enough to dull the edges of discomfort. You lose track of time, of smell, of thought. Your world narrows to pressure, movement, and the occasional instruction barked from behind a pile of bones. At one point, the door creaks open. A scullion enters, says something about broth. The butcher nods. You wrap the appropriate bones in cloth and hand them over. They are not labeled. They don't need to be. Anyone who works here knows by feel. Later, you're asked to clean the knives. A basin of water, gone pink with effort. A whetstone, a cloth. You wipe, sharpen, rinse, repeat. The blades are your responsibility now. If one is dulled or misplaced, you will hear about it. Loudly, possibly with hand gestures. When the day's meat is finished, you help carry the remains to the kitchen. Wrapped, covered, anonymous. The others take it without question. It joins the chaos of the cook's domain. You return to the butchering room. It smells worse now. You expected that. You begin scrubbing the table. It is stained, deeply, permanently. The floor beneath your boots is sticky. The soles cling slightly with each step. You do not slip. Not yet. The butcher nods at you, barely. That is your praise. You nod back, slowly. That is your thanks. Then you step out into the corridor, leaving behind the eyes, the blood, and the cleaver, for now. Back to the kitchen, where more work waits. There is a fire, and then there is this fire, a spit fire, an infernal, low-burning wall of heat made not for comfort or ambience, but for punishment disguised as cooking. It is long, it is loud, and it is entirely uninterested in your well-being. You are sent to it, not asked, not invited, sent. A brief command from the assistant cook, followed by a sharp look toward the hearth where the spit sits in wait like some medieval treadmill. No one volunteers for the spit. They are simply chosen. You were standing too close, or not moving fast enough, or you made eye contact. You regret it immediately. The spit itself is iron. Cold at first, deceptively so. You approach it warily. It runs from one side of the hearth to the other, balanced on two brackets, with a meat-laden skewer resting heavily across its frame. The meat is large, nothing delicate, no herbs tucked under the skin. Just an enormous, slow-turning slab of animal with fat dripping rhythmically into the coals below. You are handed the turning handle, which is made of wood, though it might as well be stone for all its comfort. Your job is simple, you're told. Keep it turning. Not too fast, not too slow. Steady, quiet, even. If it burns on one side, it's your fault. If it falls off the spit, it's your fault. If it's underdone and someone in the dining hall becomes violently ill, It's not your fault exactly, but the cook may say otherwise. You nod and begin to turn. The fire offers no warmth. It offers assault. Heat pours from it in waves, filling your eyes, your ears, your mouth. Your skin begins to prickle. Sweat beads along your scalp and slides down your back in lazy trails. You roll up your sleeves, which helps for about as long as it takes to realize the handle is now hot. You pull your sleeves back down. The heat laughs. Time passes slowly here. You turn the spit with one hand, then the other, then both, as if that will somehow break the monotony. It doesn't. Your arms ache. Your shoulders creak. You shift on your feet, trying to find some rhythm. You fail. You are not a machine, though that is precisely what is expected of you. Above the fire, the meat hisses. Loudly, it splatters as fat melts and drops into the coals, causing brief eruptions of flame that leap outward without warning. One catches your boot, just the edge. You stamp it out. No one reacts. This is normal. The fire bites. That's what it does. There are others in the kitchen, of course, but they are far away. They seem far away, even if only a few steps off. They move between pots and pans, chopping and stirring, barking and fetching. Their work is also miserable, but at least it changes. Yours does not. Yours is turning. You try to distract yourself. You try counting rotations, but the numbers blur. You hum something tuneless in your head. You stare at a crack in the wall, wondering how long it's been there. You wonder how long you've been here. No one tells you when you can stop. You simply keep going until someone notices you look like you might faint. You look over your shoulder, just once, hoping to catch the eye of the assistant cook. He's gone, or pretending to be. You are alone with the fire and the meat and your thoughts. Unfortunately, you consider the irony. In a world filled with terrifying jobs, mining, sailing, joining the army, here you are, indoors, safe from the elements, and yet still suffering in a way that feels almost personal. There is something about the spit, something about the drudgery of turning and sweating and inhaling smoke that makes you feel forgotten, necessary but forgettable, like a hinge or a nail. In a corner, the youngest scullion is throwing bits of stale bread to a dog. The dog is not helping. It was once trained to turn the spit, using a wheel contraption. That experiment failed. The dog now does nothing. It watches you with the disinterest of someone who has already resigned themselves to death and is just waiting for a polite moment to leave. You begin to shift your weight from one leg to the other. The floor is uneven, and your boots have no cushioning. Your toes cramp slightly, but there's no room to sit, no place to rest. You try to lean back against the hearth, but the heat pushes you forward again. The fire likes its space. Your arms burn, not with flame but with repetition. You swap hands again. The meat turns with a slight jerk, and a small voice in the back of your mind wonders if that was noticeable. It was. The assistant cook is back, standing behind you, arms crossed. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't have to. You adjust your grip, tighten your posture. You resume. Eventually, a ladle of water is handed to you, not because someone cares, but because passing out is inefficient. You sip. It's warm. It tastes faintly of something metal. You drink anyway. The ladle disappears. So does the cook. Again. Someone tells a joke nearby. You catch the end of it. Laughter follows. You do not join in. Not because you are unfriendly, but because laughter requires energy. You are conserving yours. For turning. The meat is nearly done. You can tell not because someone told you, but because the color has shifted. The smell is different, deeper, richer. It would be pleasant if you hadn't been standing in it for so long that your sense of smell had given up and gone home. When the cook returns, he does not speak. He tests the roast with a long fork, nods once, and gestures for the spit to stop. You stop, carefully, slowly, like someone ending a ritual. Others arrive to lift the meat, They carry it away, grunting. You are not asked to help. You are no longer useful. You stand there, still holding the handle, your arms humming from exertion, your forehead damp, your lips dry. You are not thanked. You are not dismissed. You simply step away from the fire and prepare to be sent somewhere else. The kitchen is not a place of equality. It never was. It is structured, ranked, and enforced with the kind of quiet rigidity one normally reserves for monasteries or prisons. Everyone knows their place. Everyone knows everyone else's place, and those places are rarely questioned unless someone steps out of line, and then they are corrected with the efficiency of a well-oiled cleaver. You, for instance, are at the bottom. You suspected this already. It was hinted to you on your first day, when you were handed a pot full of unidentifiable slop and told to scrub until you could see your reflection. You tried. You failed. No one commented. They didn't have to. The fact that you were trying at all was already an admission of your station. At the top of the pile is the master cook. He does not stir pots. He does not chop onions. He does not carry water or gut birds or wipe spills. He observes. He speaks. He points. Occasionally he tastes. More often, he scowls. His authority is absolute and unchallenged. His apron is cleaner than yours. His knife is sharper. His eyes miss nothing. He has his own small room off the main kitchena, private sanctum of hanging herbs, locked cupboards, and a ledger no one else is allowed to touch. He writes in it with a quill that never leaves the desk. What he writes is a mystery, possibly recipes, possibly names, possibly curses. No one asks. Beneath him is the assistant cook, a man who knows the precise volume at which to shout and still remain just shy of being insubordinate. He does the things the master cook will not. He assigns tasks, checks the oven, disciplines the help, and acts as a wall between you and anything resembling progress. He is always moving, always muttering, always just around the corner when you thought you might catch your breath. He has no room of his own, only a preferred corner where he sharpens his knives and watches people carry things badly. It is said that once, years ago, he was in line to become a master cook himself, but something happened. No one says what. His eyebrows do most of the speaking now. Next comes the pastry cook, a specialist, unusual in this world of generalists and drudges. The pastry cook is responsible for crusts, for lattices, for towering pies filled with improbable things. He rarely speaks. He rarely smiles. He keeps his ingredients locked away, even the flour, which he regards with the suspicion of a man who has had it stolen one too many times. His hands are always dusted white, as though caught in a permanent snowstorm. When he walks, he leaves powdery footprints that no one dares sweep up. Following him is the saucer, which is not a dish but a person, a man responsible for sauces, gravies, reductions, and all things liquid and vaguely brown. He is more creative than most here, which makes him dangerous. He adds spice when no one asks for it. He tastes things and hums. He has opinions. He is tolerated because his sauces are often the only pleasant part of a meal. Still, he is watched. Then come the carvers, the bakers, the roasters, each with their own small dominions, none with real power, but each with enough seniority to avoid the worst jobs. They pass instructions downward like buckets in a fire. They pretend not to notice when the lowest workers people like you struggle with tasks no one ever explained properly. And then, finally, there is everyone else. The turnspits, the scullions, the apprentices, the fetchers, the peelers, the wipers. The ones who do the work, all of it, and whose names are rarely remembered, even by those who use them regularly. You may have a title. It is probably not flattering. You may have a task. It will likely change. You are whatever is needed, whenever needed, for however long no one else wants to do it. Among your own kind there is still hierarchy. The scullions look down on the spit boys. The spit boys look down on the pot scrubbers. The pot scrubbers look down on the stable boys, though they are technically not part of the kitchen. Everyone is constantly, quietly, comparing blister count and burn patterns, hoping for some small badge of seniority. Favor is a form of currency here. A nod from the assistant cook, a scrap of leftover pastry, a cloth that isn't already soaked through. These are your rewards. These are your goals. No one congratulates you. No one thanks you. If you are not shouted at, you are doing well. If you are not reassigned mid-task, you are trusted. If you are not replaced by someone younger, hungrier, or quieter, you are considered dependable. The only true promotion in the kitchen is out, and that rarely happens. People leave only when they are broken, disgraced, or dead, sometimes all three. The master cook, on occasion, will stroll through the main kitchen, not to work, of course, but to survey. He may stop at a pot, he may lift a lid, he may taste, he may frown. And then he walks on, leaving behind a trail of nervous silence and sudden adjustments. When he speaks to you, it is usually through someone else. A message relayed down the ladder, each rung slightly more impatient than the last. By the time it reaches you, it is barely words, just a bark, a gesture, a command. Still, you obey. You always obey. Because not obeying means attention, and attention in the kitchen is dangerous. You learn, over time, who can be asked questions and who cannot, who can be trusted to help, and who will offer help only to scold you later for needing it. You learn who to follow when a task is unclear, and who to avoid entirely because they smell like ale and regret. The structure of the kitchen is not written anywhere. It is not explained. It is absorbed, like smoke into fabric. You feel it, you know it, and you act accordingly. You do not step out of place. You do not rise above your station. You do not aspire. You survive. And that, for now, is enough. Not all dangers in the Tudor kitchen come from fire or knives or the sharp tongues of those higher up the pecking order. Some dangers are plated, served with pride, garnished with malice. The food itself, on many days, is the final and most insidious threat. At a glance, the dishes of the Tudor kitchen seem impressive, monumental even. Feasts designed to dazzle the eye and unsettle the stomach. Tables creak beneath their weight, colors gleam, steam rises. Aromas mingle in the air like actors fighting for attention. But once you peel back the silver lid, remove the feathered garnish, and ignore the decorative foliage that should never have been placed so close to a fire, you find something more unsettling. What you find is food with ambition far beyond what the ingredients of the cooks can reliably deliver. Take the meat, for instance. There is a great deal of it, more than anyone should eat. Boiled, roasted, baked into pies, shaped into something bird-like, and then, for reasons unknown, covered in a sweet glaze. The meat is never simple. It is never just there. It arrives with ceremony, often in the shape of something else entirely, a pie shaped like a castle, a roast decorated with feathers, so that the diners can imagine the animal alive, just long enough to feel superior to it. Your job, most days, is not to serve this food. You're too low for that, but you see it, you help prepare it, you know what it smells like when it's fresh. You know what it smells like when it isn't, and you know how often the difference is ignored in the name of spectacle. Spoilage is common. The kitchen does what it can, salting, smoking, pickling, soaking in wine or vinegar or anything else that might mask the truth, but meat goes off. Everything goes off. And once it does, it doesn't get thrown away. It gets disguised. A few cloves, a fistful of cinnamon, a handful of sage or mint, or, if available, something even stronger. Spices are power here. Not just flavor, status, reputation. They are applied liberally and with the sort of reckless confidence that rarely ends well. Then there is the matter of texture. Tudor dishes are often jellied, meat in jelly, fish in jelly, Eggs in jelly. Why jelly? Because it looks impressive. Because it holds its shape. Because it allows cooks to hide ingredients beneath a shiny, quivering surface. Guests cut into it like archaeologists, each layer a surprise. Some surprises are less pleasant than others. Pies are another hazard. You are always making pies. Rolling dough, shaping crusts, stuffing them with whatever can be chopped into cubes and vaguely seasoned. Some are sweet, most are not. Some contain raisins and beef, or goose, or some combination of animals that should never have met. You once saw a pie sliced open and a live bird fly out. It landed in the gravy. No one reacted. There is a cook who specializes in pies. He whistles as he works. Not tunes, just a breathy repetition of one or two notes. It's not comforting. He once made a pie with a deer's head sticking out of the top. Just the head, antlers and all. It was described as stunning. You helped carry it to the great hall. You could still feel the heat radiating from it. The eyes were still open. Eggs are often overcooked or undercooked. There is no middle ground. They are boiled until the yolk is chalk, or they are served soft and trembling, floating in some broth of questionable origin. You are told to crack dozens at a time, separate the whites, beat them, use the yolks for custards or sauces or things no one ever explains. There is no waste in the kitchen, only repurposing. Custards, by the way, are not desserts, not reliably. Sometimes they are served with fish, sometimes with onions. Sometimes they arrive at the table cold, congealed, and vibrating gently with the effort of simply existing. They are meant to impress. They rarely do. The bread is usually safe, unless it isn't. The flour is often old, sometimes damp, sometimes filled with things that shouldn't be in flour. You are told to sift it. The sieve catches bugs. You're told to ignore them. Everyone eats them. They are, in some unspoken way, part of the recipe now. Cheese is sour, often by design. You are told that means it's mature. You are not convinced. Milk turns quickly. Butter is always on the edge of going bad, and no one seems to mind. You churn it with a rhythm you no longer feel in your arms. Just muscle memory now. Something sour emerges from the barrel. You scrape it into a dish and move on. Vegetables are not loved. They are boiled until they weep. They are chopped roughly and served without joy. Cabbage, turnips, onions, leeks. They appear in everything, especially where they're not wanted. They absorb other flavors like a sponge. They cling to every dish like they're afraid of being forgotten. No one is forgetting them. No one wants to. And then there is sugar, used like a weapon, piled into sauces, baked into meats, glazed onto poultry, stirred into soups. You once helped prepare a plate of sugared peas. Green, sweet, and sticky, they glistened in the candlelight like they were made of glass. They tasted like regret. You have tasted many things, some good, most not, but taste is not the measure of success here. Appearances matter more. Food is a performance, and you are backstage. Your job is to keep the props from falling apart, or worse, catching fire. Every dish carries a small, quiet risk. Some are obvious. Undercooked meats, questionable shellfish, cream that hasn't seen a cool place since it left the cow. Others are more subtle. Heavy spices masking decay, gilded crusts hiding soggy horror, things that were once frozen in winter and now thawing in the wrong season. The risk is accepted, understood, even celebrated. After all, no one wants to admit the feast might kill them. You once saw a nobleman rise from the table, pale and sweating, after his second course. He whispered to his steward, then disappeared behind a curtain. He returned some time later and continued eating. Nothing was said. Everyone pretended not to notice. That too is part of the ritual. And so, dish after dish, the kitchen delivers danger. Steamed, seared, baked, and jellied. You assist in its creation. You never taste it first. That honor goes to someone else. Usually the dogs. You're fine with that. Let us leave the Tudor kitchen now, not forever, but long enough to give your lungs a rest from the soot and your arms a break from the cleaver. Not that relief awaits. We are traveling backward in time and downward in comfort. We are entering an ancient Roman kitchen, and you, unsurprisingly, are entering it not as a guest, but as a slave. There is no soft way to describe the Roman kitchen. It is a space carved out of the back of a home, often windowless, always smoky, and inevitably cramped. If the house is large, the kitchen is small. That is the rule. The more important the family, the more invisible the labor. The kitchen is hidden, forgotten, and vital, just like you. The air is warm, but not pleasantly so. The heat does not soothe, it sticks. The ceiling is low, the doorway narrow. The walls are blackened with soot and stained with oil from centuries of meals. There is no chimney, no flue. The smoke curls upward, hits the ceiling, and settles downward again, coiling around your neck like a damp scarf. You blink, slowly. Your eyes sting. No one else blinks. They've given up on blinking. The stove is not a stove in the way you understand it. It is a masonry platform, flat on top, with small cavities for charcoal fires. There is no flame control, only guesses. You lean over the coals with a pot that may or may not contain lentils. The pot is clay, the handle is chipped, the lid does not fit. You stir with a stick. No one has time for spoons. The recipe is not written. It has been shouted once, several days ago. You remembered most of it, or enough of it. The lentils are boiling, which is either good or very bad. You are not sure. You listen for sounds of encouragement from the pot. It says nothing. You continue. You are not alone in this room. There are others like you, slaves, servants, workers. No titles are offered, no introductions are made. You share the space and the labor and very little else. One man tends a roasting pan. A girl washes greens in water that was once clean. An older woman grinds herbs in a bowl, slowly, her shoulders moving in a circle that seems to echo her life. There is food everywhere, and yet little to eat. The ingredients are expensive, precious, carefully rationed, not for you. You taste only what is necessary to avoid embarrassment. The rest goes to the family in the atrium. You may serve it, but you will not enjoy it. Your hands are cracked, your nails stained, your feet ache from standing, but there is nowhere to sit. The floor is wet, always wet, with water, wine, oil, or something nameless. You slip once. No one helps you up. You were not supposed to fall. You prepare bread, not the fluffy, golden loaves of modern fantasy. This bread is dense, heavy, rough with bits of husk. You shape the dough into discs and press them onto a flat stone slab. They puff slightly if the gods are kind, if not they crack. You serve them anyway. You chop vegetables, you trim fish, you clean fowl, you scrape a pan clean with a cloth that once had a color. Your tunic sticks to your back, your hair is bound, poorly, with a strip of linen. You think about water, clean water. Not for drinking, there is wine for that, but just to feel something cool against your face. You cannot remember the last time you were cool. The master's voice echoes down the hallway. Something urgent, something unspecific. You pause, you wait. The older woman wipes her hands and leaves. Her place is filled by another without a word. You are told to fetch garum, a fermented fish sauce, strong, salty, ubiquitous. It is kept in a jar so pungent it could be used as a weapon. You unseal the lid and the smell greets you like an old enemy. You measure out a portion using a broken cup. You spill a little. Your fingers smell of brine for the rest of the day. You wash them. It doesn't help. Wine is added to nearly everything, not for flavor, but preservation. If something has turned, wine forgives it. Herbs are crushed with pestles. Pepper is scattered freely, if it can be found. Spices come from across the sea, and their presence in a dish means the household is rich, or pretending to be. Meat is rare, mostly pork, occasionally goat. It arrives in chunks, not always fresh, and must be boiled to convince it into tenderness. Sometimes the meat still moves, just slightly. That is ignored. You prepare a dormouse, stuffed, seasoned, roasted. Not unusual, though not for every day. The skin is rubbed with honey. You are told not to eat the head. You are also told not to ask why. You comply. The master's children wander into the kitchen once. Out of curiosity, they look around like they've entered a cave. You are invisible to them. They pick at a bowl of olives, wrinkle their noses, and leave. You hear them laughing as they go. You check the stew again. It's thicker now, possibly ready, possibly ruined. You add a splash of wine, a pinch of herbs, and a prayer you do not say aloud. You lift the pot from the fire with a cloth and carry it to the side table, where serving bowls wait like expectant mouths. You ladle carefully, evenly. You do not spill, you do not sneeze. The head steward arrives. He smells like wax and self-importance. He inspects the food, says nothing, picks up the tray, leaves. You exhale. Then you return to the stove. Another pot waits. The charcoal needs stirring. The next course is behind schedule. There is no clock, no bell, no moment of rest. Just the stove, and your hands, and the endless smoke. You awaken to the smell of ash, not fresh ash, not the lively smoke of a new fire. No, this is old ash, tired ash. The kind that settles in the walls and in the fabric of your tunic and in the grooves of your teeth. You are somewhere in the north, a longhouse. A dark, timbered chamber lined with sleeping bodies and low murmurs. The hearth is in the center. It always is. Everything happens around the hearth. It is the heart of the house, and like most hearts, it is overworked and full of smoke. You do not live in a castle. There is no kitchen annex, no pantry. There is only this one room long, low, and filled with more than it was meant to hold. You are among a group, a community. Family, perhaps, or not. It doesn't matter. Everyone here does their part, or claims they do. You draw the short straw today, or perhaps yesterday. Time doesn't hold still in this place. You were near the fire when the food ran out. That makes you the cook. The fire has died down overnight. A few embers glow red beneath a mound of ash. You poke at them with a charred stick. One flares briefly, like it resents your interruption. You blow, gently. Then harder. The smoke thickens. It does not rise. There is no chimney. The roof is high, but the smoke hangs low. There is a hole in the thatch above, meant to let the smoke out. It doesn't. It simply invites the cold in. You add kindling. Twigs gathered the day before, damp. They sputter, they complain. You fan the fire with a bundle of dried grass. It catches finally, you don't cheer. That would waste air. The pot is still on the hook above the fire. It hasn't moved since yesterday. You look inside. Something brown, viscous and silent. Possibly broth. Possibly the remains of whatever was for supper. Possibly both. You add water from a wooden bucket. Stir with a wooden spoon. The spoon has a crack down the middle. You use it anyway. Ingredients are limited. You have salt, some dried fish, a bundle of herbs that might be herbs, a root that you hope is edible. You slice it into chunks. The knife is dull. It requires force. You press down until it splits. The pieces go into the pot. They do not float. A child coughs in the corner. Not your child, but still your responsibility. You glance at her, then back to the pot. There is no medicine, only warmth, and the promise of hot food. Eventually, the stew simmers, slowly, The fire complains. So does your back. You sit cross-legged on the dirt floor, watching steam rise in lazy swirls. The scent is not unpleasant. It is familiar, like wool and salt and effort. Someone asks when it will be ready. You don't answer. There is no answer. It will be ready when it stops being a collection of things and starts being food. That point is vague, often disputed. But you will know. The bread is flat, grain is scarce. What you have was ground roughly with a stone. The flour is coarse, bitter, and flecked with the taste of effort. You mix it with water and form small cakes, which you press onto a hot rock beside the fire. They bake slowly. The edges curl. You flip them with a stick. The bottom is burnt. The top is raw. They are done. The fish is next. Dried, stiff, and defiant. It will not soften in time. You soak it in water and pretend that will help. The salt in it has kept it from rotting. Mostly. You slice it into slivers and drop it into the pot. The broth darkens. You stir. The spoon breaks. You stir with a stick. Smoke fills the room. It clings to the rafters, to the furs, to your lungs. You cough. No one notices. They are coughing too. Someone brings you a bowl. Not clean, not dirty, simply used. You ladle stew into it. The liquid drips over the edge. You hand it back. They do not thank you. That is not the custom. The food is its own thanks. You eat last. The pot is nearly empty. You scrape the bottom. The burnt layer peels off in black flakes. You chew them. They are warm. That is enough. Outside it is cold. It is always cold. The wind whips against the longhouse like it's trying to get in. Sometimes it does. You keep the fire fed, one log at a time. There are no more logs. You burn a broken chair. There is talk of hunting tomorrow, or trapping, or fishing. You do not listen. You are thinking of roots. You saw one yesterday, near the stream. You wonder if it can be boiled. Everything can be boiled, eventually. The day passes, the pot cools, the embers dim. You cover the stew with a cloth, not to keep it warm, just to pretend someone may eat it later, or not. It doesn't matter. It is food. Sort of. You lie down on a bed of straw. Your tunic smells of smoke. Your fingers are stained. Your eyes sting. Your breath is slow. The fire crackles beside you. It will need more wood by morning. And you will give it. Let us leave the Tudor kitchen now, not forever, but long enough to give your lungs a rest from the soot and your arms a break from the cleaver. Not that relief awaits. We are traveling backward in time and downward in comfort. We are entering an ancient Roman kitchen, and you, unsurprisingly, are entering it not as a guest, but as a slave. There is no soft way to describe the Roman kitchen. It is a space carved out of the back of a home, often windowless, always smoky, and inevitably cramped. If the house is large, the kitchen is small. That is the rule. The more important the family, the more invisible the labor. The kitchen is hidden, forgotten, and vital, just like you. The air is warm, but not pleasantly so. The heat does not soothe, it sticks. The ceiling is low, the doorway narrow. The walls are blackened with soot and stained with oil from centuries of meals. There is no chimney, no flue. The smoke curls upward, hits the ceiling, and settles downward again, coiling around your neck like a damp scarf. You blink, slowly. Your eyes sting. No one else blinks. They've given up on blinking. The stove is not a stove in the way you understand it. It is a masonry platform, flat on top, with small cavities for charcoal fires. There is no flame control, only guesses. You lean over the coals with a pot that may or may not contain lentils. The pot is clay, the handle is chipped, the lid does not fit. You stir with a stick. No one has time for spoons. The recipe is not written. It has been shouted once, several days ago. You remembered most of it, or enough of it. The lentils are boiling, which is either good or very bad. You are not sure. You listen for sounds of encouragement from the pot. It says nothing. You continue. You are not alone in this room. There are others like you, slaves, servants, workers. No titles are offered, no introductions are made. You share the space and the labor and very little else. One man tends a roasting pan. A girl washes greens in water that was once clean. An older woman grinds herbs in a bowl, slowly, her shoulders moving in a circle that seems to echo her life. There is food everywhere, and yet little to eat. The ingredients are expensive, precious, carefully rationed. Not for you. You taste only what is necessary to avoid embarrassment. The rest goes to the family in the atrium. You may serve it, but you will not enjoy it. Your hands are cracked. Your nails stained. Your feet ache from standing, but there is nowhere to sit. The floor is wet, always wet, with water, wine, oil, or something nameless. You slip once. No one helps you up. You were not supposed to fall. You prepare bread, not the fluffy golden loaves of modern fantasy. This bread is dense, heavy, rough with bits of husk. You shape the dough into discs and press them onto a flat stone slab. They puff slightly if the gods are kind. If not, they crack. You serve them anyway. You chop vegetables. You trim fish. You clean fowl. You scrape a pan clean with a cloth that once had a color. Your tunic sticks to your back. Your hair is bound, poorly, with a strip of linen. You think about water. Clean water. Not for drinking, there is wine for that, but just to feel something cool against your face. You cannot remember the last time you were cool. The master's voice echoes down the hallway. Something urgent, something unspecific. You pause, you wait. The older woman wipes her hands and leaves. Her place is filled by another without a word. You are told to fetch garum, a fermented fish sauce, strong, salty, ubiquitous. It is kept in a jar so pungent it could be used as a weapon. You unseal the lid, and the smell greets you like an old enemy. You measure out a portion using a broken cup. You spill a little. Your fingers smell of brine for the rest of the day. You wash them. It doesn't help. Wine is added to nearly everything. Not for flavor, but preservation. If something has turned, wine forgives it. Herbs are crushed with pestles. Pepper is scattered freely, if it can be found. Spices come from across the sea, and their presence in a dish means the household is rich, or pretending to be. Meat is rare, mostly pork, occasionally goat. It arrives in chunks, not always fresh, and must be boiled to convince it into tenderness. Sometimes the meat still moves, just slightly. That is ignored. You prepare a dormouse, stuffed, seasoned, roasted, not unusual, though not for every day. The skin is rubbed with honey. You are told not to eat the head. You are also told not to ask why. You comply. The master's children wander into the kitchen once. Out of curiosity, they look around like they've entered a cave. You are invisible to them. They pick at a bowl of olives, wrinkle their noses, and leave. You hear them laughing as they go. You check the stew again. It's thicker now, possibly ready, possibly ruined. You add a splash of wine, a pinch of herbs, and a prayer you do not say aloud. You lift the pot from the fire with a cloth and carry it to the side table, where serving bowls wait like expectant mouths. You ladle carefully, evenly. You do not spill. You do not sneeze. The head steward arrives. He smells like wax and self-importance. He inspects the food, says nothing, picks up the tray, leaves. You exhale. Then you return to the stove. Another pot waits. The charcoal needs stirring. The next course is behind schedule. There is no clock, no bell, no moment of rest. Just the stove, and your hands, and the endless smoke. The world outside is cold, bitter, endless, wind-stung. A breath leaves your lips and turns to frost before you can pull your cloak tighter. The sea is not far off. You can hear it, faintly, like a giant inhaling in slow, endless rhythm, but you are not allowed the luxury of standing and listening to waves. You are crouched near a hearth, a low fire, inside a longhouse. Your job is to keep the flame alive, and the soup from dying. The Viking hearth is not a grand thing, not even by the standards of the day. It is a rectangle of flat stones laid in the center of a room that never quite decides whether it wants to be indoors or out. The fire burns low, sullen, resentful. It does not crackle, it sulks. The smoke has nowhere to go. There is a hole in the roof, yes, but the wind outside has decided that smoke should stay in and people should go out. The air inside is thick, dense. It tastes of ash and broth and wool. You breathe through your scarf. It helps very little. The pot is suspended from a wooden beam. It swings slightly with each gust that sneaks in through the walls. The stew inside is mostly water, partly roots, and arguably meat. Something salted, grey, and fibrous. It's been boiling for what feels like days. No one can remember when it started. No one wants to stop it in case the boiling is the only thing keeping the contents from turning hostile. Your knees hurt, not in a dramatic, heroic way, just in the dull, persistent way that things do when they've been pressed against frozen ground long enough to consider other career options. But there are no other options. You stir. Slowly. The ladle is carved from horn. It has a crack that leaks when you lift it. This is common knowledge. No one replaces it. Replacing things is for people who have things to replace them with. The others sit around the room, slumped on benches or furs or whatever passes for comfort in this place. They do not speak often. Words are expensive. Warmth is cheaper and harder to come by. Most of them are asleep, or pretending to be. You envy them, but you cannot stop stirring. The pot must move, always, even if only to stop the contents from sticking. Or to pretend you're doing something useful. A child wanders past, barefoot, somehow not cold. They peer into the pot and frown. You recognize the look. It means, "This again?" You offer a shrug. The child mutters something about fish and walks off. There is no fish in the pot. You wish there were. Someone else is tasked with baking the flatbread. It is not bread in the comforting sense. It is dense, chewy, and frequently burnt on one side, but it is warm, and that is enough. It is cooked on a flat stone near the edge of the hearth. The woman doing it is older, her hands lined like dried bark. She says nothing. You nod to each other, and that is the entire conversation for the day. You are not allowed to eat yet. That comes later, after the men return, from where you're not told. Somewhere cold, somewhere with axes, somewhere loud. They will want food. They will want it hot. And if it isn't, there will be complaints. Not shouted, not dramatic, just disappointed, as if the soup personally betrayed them. You taste it, carefully. It tastes like wet, slightly salty wet. You add a pinch of herbs, dried, brittle, and hoarded in a pouch like treasure. They do very little. But they look like you tried. And that, sometimes, is enough. A gust of wind forces the door open. It slams against the wall with the sound of finality. You jump. The pot swings. Some of the stew sloshes over the side. You panic briefly. A dog appears and laps it up. The dog is ancient, blind in one eye, smarter than most people here. It looks at you as if to say, "You'll get no help from me." Then it curls up near the hearth, occupying the only truly warm spot in the building. The woman with the bread passes you a piece, charred on one edge, raw on the other. You eat it without complaint. It fills your mouth with the texture of tree bark and smoke. You chew slowly, trying to make it last longer than it should. You fail. You are still hungry. You will remain hungry. A pot of something fermented is nearby. It bubbles. Not in a good way. It's been sitting for days, maybe weeks. You do not ask what it is. You only know that someone will drink it later and claim it tastes like strength. There is no clock. Time is measured by the fading of light and the gradual slouch of shoulders. Someone coughs, someone else shuffles their feet. A man stands up, sighs deeply, and sits back down. These are the signs that another hour has passed. You stir again. The pot gurgles. You think about the outside. The cold that waits just beyond the door. The snow, the wind, the silence. It is worse than the kitchen, but only barely. Sometimes a feast is held. On those days, the stew is richer. A bit of dried meat, some wild herbs, maybe even actual fish. But those days are rare. Most days are like this. Warmth without comfort, food without flavor, work without end. When the men do arrive, it is loud. Briefly, they stamp their boots, they laugh too loudly, they sit heavily. The pot is carried to the center of the room. You help ladle it out. No one compliments it. No one complains. They eat, quickly, loudly. Then the bowls are passed back, scraped clean, or nearly so. You collect them. You scrub them later, with snow, if there's any left, if not sand. The fire begins to die. The coals settle. The pot is empty. The room grows quiet again. You sit beside the hearth. You stretch your legs. You stare at the ceiling. Smoke curls toward the hole again, but doesn't quite leave. You do not sleep yet. There's still something to chop. A root, maybe an onion, maybe just something round and vaguely edible. Tomorrow, you will light the fire again. Tomorrow, you will stir. The house is quiet. Perfectly, delicately quiet. Not the silence of neglect, but the cultivated stillness of a place where even the floorboards know better than to creak without permission. The walls are paper, the floors are wood, and everything is arranged with such intention that stepping into it feels like entering a performance that started long before you arrived. And yet, at the center of this careful calm, there is a fire. It is not large, it is not loud, it is not supposed to be either. It is a controlled thing, tucked away in an alcove near the back of the house, contained within a sunken hearth lined with ash and patience. It is your responsibility. You do not light it. It is already lit. You tend it. You feed it just enough to keep it alive, but never so much that it grows bold. The flame must be humble, modest, disciplined, like you. This is not a kitchen in the way others are. There is no bustle, no shouting, no clatter of pots being flung across the room in frustration. There is only you, the fire, and the quiet hiss of water slowly approaching a boil. The utensils are few: a pot, a bowl, a ladle, a blade so sharp it could slice thought. All are clean. All are precisely placed. You kneel on a woven mat. Your posture is straight, not from pride but obligation. Slouching near the hearth is not just rude, it is incorrect. You do not speak. No one does. If someone needs something, they appear. If they do not, you do not disturb them. You do not need to be reminded that your role is service. You live in it, breathe it, kneel in it. The rice must be cooked perfectly, not approximately, not close enough, perfectly. It has been soaked, rinsed, drained. The grains were counted not literally, but nearly. You add water. Just enough. You place the pot over the fire. You do not stir it. You do not lift the lid. You wait, patiently, watchfully. Your timing must be exact. No clocks, no timers. Just your eyes, your ears, the subtle change in sound as the water shifts, bubbles, disappears. If you lift the lid too soon, steam escapes. You lose the balance. If you lift it too late, the rice burns. There is no forgiveness. The man you serve may never comment, but he will notice. And once he notices, it becomes part of your legacy. You are not cooking for a large family. You are not feeding a hungry hall of warriors. You are preparing a meal for a samurai. One man, one tray, one moment. It must be correct. The vegetables are simple, rooted, sliced thin. They must be cooked just enough to soften but never enough to break. Texture matters, so does harmony. The flavors must not compete. They must agree to be present, and no more. There is miso, a soup, pale, warm, delicate. Not an afterthought, but a companion to the rice. You prepare it gently, as though it might be offended by sudden movements. A little seaweed, a small cube of tofu. You stir only once. A single gesture, then you let it sit. Let it breathe. Let it be. The fish has been dried. Not a failure, a preservation. You toast it slowly over a thin flame, turning it just once. The smell is faint, controlled, intentional. Nothing in this space is allowed to linger. Especially not you. The meal is served on lacquered wood, each piece in its proper place. Rice in the front, soup to the side, vegetables across. Nothing overlaps, nothing spills. You carry the tray with two hands. Steady, silent. You do not shuffle. You do not glance around. You walk as if the floor might crumble if you step wrong. You place the tray before the samurai. You bow. Not deeply, but precisely. He does not speak. He looks at the tray, then at you, then back to the tray. You leave. You return to the hearth. You kneel. The fire has lowered. That is correct. It should reflect the house. And the house is always in a state of composed decline. Nothing too loud, nothing too bright. Everything slowly fading with dignity. You clean the pot. Quietly. There is no sink. Just a basin, a cloth, and water you carried from outside. You wipe. You dry. You return everything to its place. You move slowly enough not to seem rushed, but not so slowly as to seem lazy. It is a balance, like all things here. Another meal must be prepared later, a small dish of pickled plum, perhaps something simmered in soy. Not now, but soon. The ingredients are ready. They wait, like you. You once dropped a bowl. It did not break, but it made a sound. The room heard it. Nothing was said. But for weeks afterward, your tasks became smaller, simpler, peeling, wiping. Boiling water, you earned your way back to the hearth, and you never dropped anything again. The fire begins to dim. The sun moves through the paper walls in slow bands. Light shifts from silver to gold. You do not mark the hours, you feel them. You are not exhausted, not visibly, but your knees ache, your back stiffens, your hands tremble slightly from holding still too long. Stillness is its own kind of labor, but you do not complain. You are part of a system, a piece of a larger calm, and your discomfort is not part of the story. The hearth remains warm. The food is correct. You have done well. No one tells you. They do not need. The kitchen has gone quiet. Not silent, never truly silent, but quieter. The clangs and barks have dwindled to the low hum of leftover embers and the occasional groan of wood contracting in the walls. Somewhere, far down a corridor, a door latch is closed. A pot is scraped one final time. A ladle is returned to its hook. But the kitchen, even at rest, does not sleep. It merely simmers. You are still here. Not out of obligation, exactly, but because leaving feels dishonest. The day hasn't quite let go of you yet. There's grime in your fingernails, grease in your hair, something sticky on your sleeve. You stopped asking what days ago. You've stopped asking most things. The fire has died down to coals, not bright enough to cook by, just warm enough to remind you that heat exists. The shadows on the walls are longer now, softer. The copper pans reflect them, warped into quiet spirals. Your reflection stares back, dull and vague, a smudge with eyes. You sit on a low stool in the pantry, not because it's comfortable and oathing here, is but because it is the only place not directly under someone's authority. The pantry is too small for yelling, too quiet for orders. Just shelves of food in varying stages of preservation, some fresh, some hopeful, some clearly lost causes pretending not to be. The air here is dense, layered. It does not smell like one thing. It smells like all of them. Flour dust, vinegar, dried herbs, cured meat, old bread, apples, rotting slowly into a soft, cider-like perfume. Something fermented in a jar, unsealed a day too soon. Cheese in stages of rebellion. Garlic, always garlic. Pungent, proud, and thoroughly committed to being noticed. The smells cling to you now. They are in your clothes, your hair, your pores. You walked in this morning as one person, you will leave as another. A person-shaped sponge, soaked in the essence of stew and smoke, and things better left unlabeled. You will carry it into bed, into dreams, into the next day, and the next. You will walk through the market, and someone will wrinkle their nose behind your back. You will learn to live with it. You stretch your legs, slowly, carefully. Muscles complain, but not loudly. They know you're listening. They don't want to seem ungrateful. You shift your weight, lean your shoulder against a sack of barley. It yields slightly, like a tired friend. You imagine sinking into it, disappearing between grains. A burial of sorts. Warm, silent, nutritious. The pantry is cool. The stone walls hold the chill. A relief after the day's heat. The contrast makes your skin twitch. You welcome it. A reminder that your body still knows how to feel something other than fatigue. You look at the shelves again. Inventory. Out of habit, not need. A bowl of dried beans. A wheel of cheese with a small bite missing. Someone was hungry, or curious, or both. A stack of linen-wrapped parcels labeled in handwriting that predates you. No one opens them anymore. They're part of the landscape. There is a jar of honey, half used, crystallized at the edges. It catches the lamplight in amber layers. You think about stealing a spoonful, not out of greed, just to remember sweetness. But your hands don't move. They've done enough today. And the honey, in its way, seems too noble to tamper with now. The silence stretches. You let it. Your eyes grow heavy, not with sleep exactly, but with the weight of unspoken things. The things you didn't say when the stew boiled over. The apology that never left your mouth when the pie collapsed. The quiet pride you swallowed when the bread rose, just barely, against all odds. Your back rests against the wall. You shift your head, gently, until it finds a groove in the stone, a notch made by time or accident. It fits. You close your eyes, just briefly. The smell of bay leaves and stale biscuits surrounds you. It is, against all expectations, oddly comforting. You hear footsteps, soft, hesitant, someone else, lingering. Maybe another apprentice. Maybe a scullion escaping the mop. Maybe the cook himself, pacing in that slow, circular way he does when the numbers don't add up and the ledger feels heavier than the ladles. Whoever it is, they don't speak, and neither do you. The pantry is not for words. It is for leftover thoughts. Things stored away, tucked into corners, forgotten until they spoil. You have many. You leave most of them on the shelf beside the pickled onions. Your hands rest on your knees. Your shoulders settle. The warmth of the day seeps out of you, replaced by something gentler. Not quite peace, not quite relief. Just a kind of quiet resignation that feels, for the first time all day, like something close to stillness. The smells won't go away. They never do. They'll follow you, cling to you, soak into the folds of your apron and the edge of your pillow. But here, in the pantry, they are less a burden and more a backdrop. A tapestry of effort, a testament to all you've done, all you've endured. You take one deep breath. Garlic. And then another. Cheese. And one more, because you know you'll be standing again soon. Smoke, barley, bay leaf, and honey. The smells that linger. The proof that you were here. The fire is long since gone out. The pots have been scrubbed mostly. The floor has been swept roughly. The pans hang from their hooks like weary sentinels, glinting faintly in the low light. The kitchen is at rest, though not asleep. Kitchens do not sleep. They wait, and they remember. You sit there, still, on the same low stool or sack or corner you collapsed into some time ago. Minutes, maybe hours. It hardly matters. Time doesn't mean what it used to. The bells that govern the day have fallen silent, and with them, the urgency. But your body still hums with it. A low echo, the ghost of effort. You roll your shoulder. It cracks, not dramatically, just enough to remind you that you are made of joints, not just obligation. Your knees protest the idea of standing. Your spine wonders what it ever did to deserve this. You take another moment. No one is calling for you now. There is nothing to burn, nothing to slice, no roast to save, no flour to sift. You are, for the first time today, unassigned. And so you ask the question, silently, privately, without expectation. Was it worth it? You don't ask it out loud. That would be too direct, too final, but it floats there, between the sacks of grain and the shelves of pickled things. It sits gently in your lap, like a folded cloth. The question has no edge to it. It's soft, worn, as familiar as the apron that now clings to you like an old regret. You think back to the start of the day, when your hands were clean and your mind was clear enough to worry about tasks you can no longer remember. When someone told you to fetch something, and you ran it out of fear, but the hope of favor, the hope of being noticed, respected, seen. You think of the bread, the dough you kneaded until your palms ached. You think of how it rose, just slightly, despite the chill. You think of the smell as it baked. You didn't eat any, but you watched someone else eat it, and you saw their face, that flicker of approval, that nod, however brief. You didn't need to be told it was good. You knew. You remember the roast, the spit, the endless turning, the way the fat hissed in the fire, the blister on your hand that you only noticed hours later. You remember stepping back as it was carried away. The weight of it, the heat still clinging to the metal. You remember not being scolded for once, a rare and precious thing. You recall the mistake too, the stew you let boil too long, the salt you forgot to add, the look from the assistant cook, not fury, not rage, but worse, disappointment. Disappointment carries further. It travels home with you. It follows you into sleep. There were moments today when you wanted to disappear, when the shouting rose and the pans fell and the dog got underfoot again and the fire wouldn't catch and the girl beside you cried without making a sound. You wanted to drop the ladle and walk until your feet hurt in a different way, but you didn't. You stayed, you stirred, you wiped your eyes with your sleeve and kept your head down. That counts for something, doesn't it? Was it worth it? You look around the pantry. The shelves are lined with what remains. Ends of loaves, cracked jars, cloth-wrapped cheeses. Not wealth exactly, but not nothing. Every item here is the result of someone's hands. Your hands, sometimes. Someone's knife. Someone's back bent over a trough or a barrel or a stone mill. These shelves are quiet proof of survival, of effort, of stubborn continuity. You remember laughing once, earlier, not loudly, just enough to surprise yourself. Someone dropped a spoon and blamed the cat. You both laughed, then pretended you hadn't. It felt dangerous. And good. You remember burning your tongue on a spoonful of broth you weren't supposed to taste. The pain was sharp, but the flavor warm, rich, correct told you you'd done something right. You wanted to tell someone. You didn't. You remember finding a perfect apple, one that hadn't bruised. You hid it, not to hoard it, but to give it to the girl who hadn't eaten all day. You placed it near her cup and walked away. She never mentioned it, but you saw the stem in the ashes later. It was gone. That was enough. You think about leaving. Someday. Maybe. Maybe not. The work will be here tomorrow. The same peeling, the same lifting, the same heat and scraping and endless, thankless turning, but also perhaps the same chance to get it right, or better, to fix the stew, to rise the bread, to move a little faster and avoid the shouting, to feel, for just a moment, useful, needed. That might be enough. You stand, slowly. Everything aches. The room tilts, then stills. You stretch your back and feel something crack that shouldn't, but doesn't complain. You blow out the last lamp. The pantry settles into darkness. The kitchen sighs. You place your hand on the doorframe as you leave, not for balance, just to feel something solid. Was it worth it? You don't answer, but you'll be back tomorrow. That might be the answer.